Dean Martin stopped mid-sentence when the bride's father collapsed against the chapel wall, his face white as paper. Wait, because what the paramedics found in that man's jacket pocket 3 minutes later would force Dean to make a choice that could destroy his career or save a stranger's entire family. The Sands Hotel chapel wasn't built for drama. 10 wooden chairs, a simple altar, and a justice of the peace who could process 6 weddings in an afternoon. But on April 19th, 1969, that small room became the center of something nobody planned for. Sarah Mitchell was 23, a waitress at a diner 2 miles off the strip. Michael Chen was 25, a line cook at the same place. They'd saved 8 months to afford this wedding, $370 total. No reception, no band, no photographer. Sarah's father, Frank, drove in from Bakersfield that morning. Just the 3 of them in that chapel at 7:30, plus the justice of the peace and a hotel employee witness. But Frank had done something Sarah didn't know about. 3 weeks earlier, he'd borrowed $900 from Vincent Cardoza, a mid-level operator who ran debts for the casino. Frank wanted to give his daughter something special. Vincent smiled and said sure, but the interest was 15% a week. Frank agreed because he was desperate and didn't understand how fast that debt could grow. Dean Martin wasn't supposed to be anywhere near that chapel. He'd finished his first show at 7, second show wasn't until 9:30. But that night, Dean was restless. He decided to walk through the hotel, something he almost never did during show nights. He was passing the third-floor elevators when he heard raised voices from the chapel direction. One voice was a woman, young, pleading. The other was a man, older, trying to sound calm but failing. Dean stopped walking. Write in the comments, where are you listening to this story from, and what time is it right now? Through the half-open door, Dean could see them. A young woman in a clearance rack white dress, a young man in an ill-fitting suit, and an older man in work clothes, his face red and sweating despite the air conditioning. "Dad, please," the woman was saying. "Just sit down, you don't look good." "I'm fine, Sarah," the older man said, voice shaky. "Let's just get this done." The justice of the peace began. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." Frank Mitchell stood next to his daughter, trying to smile, but his face kept losing color. Sarah kept glancing at him, joy mixed with worry. Dean made a decision. He pushed the door open and walked inside. The justice stopped mid-sentence. Sarah and Michael turned, confusion shifting to shock. Frank didn't turn. He was too focused on staying upright. "Excuse me, folks," Dean said, voice warm. "I was walking by and couldn't help but notice you're having a wedding. I've got time before my next show. How about some music for this ceremony?" "No. Charge. Just a gift." Sarah started crying immediately. Michael grabbed her hand, but Frank still didn't turn. He was leaning against the wall now, one hand pressed flat against the plaster. Dean noticed. He walked past the couple right up to Frank. "Sir, are you all right?" Frank tried to answer, but the words wouldn't come. His legs buckled. Dean caught him before he hit the floor, lowering him gently as Sarah screamed, "Look at what happens next, because this is where everything changes." Dean knelt beside Frank, checking his pulse. "Somebody call for help, now." The witness ran out. Michael was at the wall phone. Sarah dropped to her knees beside her father, grabbing his hand. "Dad, stay with me." Frank's eyes were unfocused. His breathing came in short, painful gasps. His skin went from red to pale to gray in 30 seconds. Dean had seen heart attacks before. This looked like one. "You're going to be okay," Dean said, though he had no idea if that was true. "Help is coming. Just breathe. Notice how the room has shifted. 30 seconds ago, this was a wedding. Now it's a crisis, and Dean is right in the center of it." Paramedics arrived in under 4 minutes. They moved fast, checking Frank's pulse, breathing, pupils. One pulled out a stethoscope. The other asked Sarah rapid questions. "Does your father have heart problems?" "Any medication? Chest pain today?" Sarah answered, voice breaking. No heart problems she knew of. No medication. He'd said he had indigestion earlier. One paramedic went through Frank's pockets, standard procedure for ID and medical info. He pulled out a wallet, keys, then a folded paper. The paramedic glanced at it and his expression changed. "Sir," the paramedic said to Frank, voice low. "Is this yours?" Frank's eyes focused. He saw the paper and panic crossed his face. He tried to reach for it, but his arm wouldn't cooperate. The paramedic handed the paper to his partner and went back to Frank's vitals. The second paramedic read it, face going hard. He looked at Sarah. "Ma'am, do you know about this?" Know about what? Sarah asked, desperate. He handed her the paper. Sarah read it and the color drained from her face. What? No, this can't be right. Michael took it and read. His jaw clenched. $900. Dad, what did you do? Remember this moment. The paper, the faces, the silence. Because what Dean does in the next 60 seconds will define everything that comes after. Frank was loaded onto the stretcher. Sarah followed, still holding his hand. Michael started to follow, but Dean put a hand on his shoulder. Hold on, kid. Michael turned. Mr. Martin, I have to go. I know, but first tell me what that paper said. Michael hesitated. A debt. Her father borrowed money for this wedding from someone named Vincent Cardoza. Dean's eyes went cold. He knew that name. Vincent Cardoza was a collector, the kind who made problems disappear for the right people and created them for the wrong ones. How much? 900 plus interest. Payment was due yesterday. Dean was quiet, thinking. Go with your wife and her father. Make sure he gets to the hospital. I'll take care of this. Mr. Martin, you don't have to. I know I don't, but I'm going to. Now go. Michael looked at him, confused, grateful, scared. Then he ran after Sarah and the paramedics. Dean stood alone in that empty chapel for 10 seconds. Then he walked to the house phone and told the operator, connect me to the casino floor. I need Vincent Cardoza. Wait, think about what Dean just did. He's about to call a man who makes his living breaking kneecaps on behalf of two strangers he met 5 minutes ago. The phone rang twice. Yeah? This is Dean Martin. I need Vincent Cardoza. Pause. Dean Martin, the singer? Put Vincent on. A different voice came on, smoother. Mr. Martin, this is Vincent Cardoza. What can I do for you? You've got a debt on Frank Mitchell, 900 plus interest. That's correct. Do you know Mr. Mitchell? Just met him. He collapsed at his daughter's wedding 10 minutes ago. He's at the hospital. That's unfortunate, but his debt still stands. I know, that's why I'm calling. I'm going to pay it. Long pause. You're going to pay Frank Mitchell's debt? That's what I said. How much total with interest? Vincent did the math. As of today, $1,135. Dean didn't hesitate. I'll have a bank check delivered tomorrow morning. In exchange, you erase Frank's debt completely. No further contact with him or his family. Clear? Vincent was silent, weighing angles. Finally, we're clear. I'll expect the check by 10 a.m. You'll have it. Dean hung up. He stood there, hand on the phone. $1,135. More than most people made in 6 months. And he'd just agreed to pay it for a stranger. Listen carefully, because what happens in the next hour is going to rewrite everything you thought you understood about this night. Dean went to his dressing room and wrote a check. Called the hotel manager, arranged delivery to Vincent. Then he sat and stared at his mirror, trying to figure out what he'd just done and why. His band manager knocked. Dean, hour before showtime, run through the set? Not tonight. Tonight we're changing things up. Changing what? Dean grabbed his jacket. I'll let you know on stage. Right now I need to go to the hospital. Are you sick? No, but someone else is, and I need to make sure they're okay. He took a cab to Desert Springs Hospital, walked through the ER doors at 8:30. A nurse looked up, nearly dropped her clipboard. Mr. Martin? I'm looking for Frank Mitchell, brought in half an hour ago. The nurse checked the charts. Examination room 3, but I can't let you back unless you're family. Dean leaned on the desk with that famous smile. Ma'am, I just saved that man's life tonight. I think that makes us close enough. She hesitated, nodded. Room 3, down the hall, second left. Through the door window, Dean saw Frank on a gurney with monitors and IVs. Sarah sat beside him, holding his hand. Michael stood behind her. A doctor talked to them, expression serious but not grave. Dean knocked softly. All three turned. Sarah's eyes went wide. Mr. Martin? Wanted to check on your father. The doctor looked confused. Are you family? No, but I was there when it happened. The doctor nodded. Mr. Mitchell is stable. Wasn't a heart attack. Severe panic attack with exhaustion and dehydration. Keeping him overnight, but he should be fine. Sarah started crying. Relief tears. Michael exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for an hour. Frank's eyes were clearer now. He looked at Dean. You're the singer. That's right. You carried me when I fell. I did. Frank was quiet. My daughter was getting married. I know, and she still is. Ceremony's just postponed. Frank's eyes filled with tears. I ruined it. No, you didn't, Sarah said, squeezing his hand. But Frank looked at Dean. I borrowed money. Too much from the wrong people. I wanted to give her something nice. Now they're going to come after me, and I can't pay them back. Notice the weight in his voice, the shame, the fear. This is a man who gambled everything to give his daughter one good day. Dean pulled a chair over. Frank, listen. That debt, it's gone. Frank blinked. What? I paid it. All of it. You don't owe Vincent Cardoza anything. Complete silence. Sarah's mouth opened. Michael stepped back. Frank stared. You paid my debt? That's over $1,000. Why would you do that? You don't know me. Dean thought about how to answer. Because I grew up poor, Frank. I grew up where people like you broke their backs trying to give families something better. I remember that shame of not having enough. When I saw you in that chapel trying to stay on your feet for your daughter, I knew I had to help. Not because you deserved it, but because I could. I have more money than I know what to do with, and you needed it more than I did. Frank was crying. Sarah sobbed. Michael had his face in his hands. I can't pay you back, Frank said. I'm not asking you to. Just take care of your daughter. Love her. Be the father she needs. That's all the payment I want. Remember this moment. This is what generosity actually looks like. Not photo ops. Just one man helping another because he can. Dean stood. I have a show in 45 minutes. But that wedding ceremony? It's not over. When your father's released tomorrow, you're going to finish it. And I'm going to be there to sing. Just like I promised. Sarah hugged Dean before he could react. She held tight, crying into his shoulder. Dean let her arms around her. It's okay. Everything's going to be okay. He looked at Frank one more time. Rest up. Your daughter needs you walking her down that aisle. Then, he left. He made it back to the Sands at 9:20. His band was panicking. Dean, where were you? 3,000 people waiting. I know, let's give them a show. He walked on stage at 9:30 to thunderous applause. For 90 minutes, Dean did what he did best. Sang, joked, made 3,000 people forget their problems. But halfway through, during a quiet moment, Dean did something he rarely did. He talked about something real. Folks, before I came out tonight, I met a man who reminded me why I do this. He reminded me that sometimes the most important thing is showing up for someone who needs you, even if you don't know them. That man collapsed at his daughter's wedding tonight, and I was there. You know what? I'm glad I was. Because sometimes we forget life isn't about sold-out shows or standing ovations. It's about small moments, quiet kindnesses, choosing to help someone just because you can. The audience was silent. So here's what I want you to do. Tomorrow, or whenever you get the chance, help someone who needs it. Don't do it for credit. Just do it because it's right, because that's what we're supposed to do for each other. He smiled. Now let's get back to the music before I get too sentimental. The crowd laughed and applauded. Dean launched into That's Amore. Look at how this night transformed. Routine show, medical emergency, moral choice, lesson for 3,000 strangers. Next day, Frank was released. Dean arranged for the chapel at 3 p.m. He also arranged flowers, a photographer, a reception with food and champagne, a band. Didn't tell Sarah and Michael, just did it. When they arrived at 3, they found the chapel transformed. White roses everywhere. Professional photographer, food and drinks, and Dean Martin waiting at the altar in a fresh tuxedo. Sarah started crying the moment she walked in. The justice of the peace performed the ceremony. No interruptions this time, just 2 people saying vows, promising to love each other, to build a life together. When he said, "You may kiss the bride," Dean Martin began to sing. Everybody loves somebody. His voice filled that chapel with warmth and emotion that felt like a blessing. Sarah cried through it. Michael held her. Frank stood tall, tears streaming, watching his daughter marry a good man. When the song ended, Dean shook Michael's hand. Take care of her. I will. He kissed Sarah's hand. You've got a good man and a good father. Hold on to them. Thank you for everything. Dean smiled. Don't thank me. Just be happy. He turned to Frank. Feeling better? Frank nodded. Much better, thanks to you. Good. Your daughter needs you around for a long time. You've got grandkids to spoil someday. Frank laughed. I'll do my best. Before Dean left, he pulled Frank aside. Promise me something. Anything. Never take a loan from someone like Vincent again. If you're in trouble, ask for help from people who care. Family, friends, even strangers. But not people like Vincent. They don't help. They trap. Frank nodded. I promise. And remember this day, not because I was here, but because of what you learned. You learned accepting help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And there are people who will step up for you when you need it, even without reason. Frank's voice was thick. How do I repay you? Dean put his hand on Frank's shoulder. You don't. You pass it on. Someday when you see someone who needs help, you help them. Don't ask for anything back. Just do it. That's how you repay me. I swear I'll do that. I believe you. Notice how the story doesn't end when the hero walks away. The real impact comes later. Over 30 years, Frank Mitchell became known as the man who helped everyone. Free car repairs, moving help, meals for those who needed them. He never mentioned Dean Martin. Just help because that's what Dean taught him. Sarah and Michael named their first son Dean. When the boy was old enough, they told him the story. Dean Mitchell decided to become a paramedic. He wanted to help people the way Dean Martin had helped his grandfather. Dean Mitchell worked as a paramedic for 25 years, saved lives, comforted families, showed up in people's worst moments. Every time he helped someone, he thought about that wedding night story. In 1995, Dean Martin passed away. Frank wrote a letter to Dean's family explaining what Dean had done, how it changed everything. 3 weeks later, Frank got a call from one of Dean's children. They'd received the letter and wanted Frank to know Dean kept a photo from Sarah's wedding in his wallet for years. On the back in Dean's handwriting, "This is why we sing." Wait, Dean Martin, who performed for presidents, who sold millions of records, kept a photo of two strangers in his wallet because their wedding reminded him why his success mattered. Not for fame or money, but for moments when he could use it to change someone's life. Frank Mitchell passed away in 2003. Over 200 people came to his funeral, people he'd helped over the years. His grandson Dean gave the eulogy, told the wedding story, then said something that silenced the room. My grandfather taught me kindness isn't about what you have, it's about what you choose to do with it. Dean Martin had fame and fortune and chose to help a stranger. My grandfather had time and skill and chose to help neighbors. I have training and compassion and choose to help people in crisis. None of us are perfect. None can save everyone, but all of us can do something. When we choose to help just because we can, we keep alive the spirit of what Dean Martin started 50 years ago. The ripple effect of that 1969 night spread through decades, families, communities. It touched hundreds of lives, all because one man decided to pay attention, to care, to act. Dean Martin never told this story publicly, never used it for publicity. He just did it because it was right. And that, more than any song or movie, is what made him truly great. So here's my question. Who's your Frank Mitchell? Who needs someone to step up for them? Who needs a burden lifted, a moment of grace? And are you willing to be their Dean Martin? To act without recognition, to help without expecting anything back, to make someone's impossible situation suddenly possible? The answer determines whether this story ends here or continues through you. If you want to hear about the night Dean Martin walked into a funeral and turned grief into something nobody saw coming, leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Because that story, that one's even harder to believe.